Set? Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. This is an informational forum to just go over what's going to be happening up in your area. And you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. I do have to say, we do have a limited time this evening, so if there's any questions that are not asked here, we will take your name, we'll give you a card. You can also email some questions if you have them.
Could you repeat that again? This mic.
Sure, I'm sorry. So I welcomed everybody, and this meeting will last probably about 45 minutes this evening. There will be some opportunity to ask questions. If some of your questions are not answered, I will be handing out cards, and you can certainly email me or call if you have further questions or if you think of something after the meeting. Okay? I'd like to introduce Ron Knoll. He's with the Carlo and Dow. He's the engineers. And this is Mike Canios, who is our Director of Public Works.
Acting Director of Public Works. Fine. Good afternoon, everyone. The project before us, as shown on the screen behind us, highlights the current project that the city has received funding for, and it is shown in yellow as the extension of Constitution Boulevard from where it terminates now at Bridgeport Avenue. The road will be extended westerly through undeveloped property, through a couple of properties that the city has recently acquired to access the Moss property, which is the big green polygon behind us, to open land for development and economic development. As you've seen in the paper, the Moss property is being marketed to interested buyers, and the city has attracted a couple of top Connecticut firms to relocate to the facility. So the chore before us here at the table is to facilitate the road construction that will allow that development of the Moss property. And so with that, there'll be improvements to Bridgeport Avenue, which are shown at in yellow at the very bottom. There'll be additional lanes added, a new modern traffic signal there at Bridgeport Avenue and the new Constitution Boulevard intersection. The road will be cut through the rock that exists right there at the very start of the project that you see a rock face there along Bridgeport Avenue, and continue that excavation to construct the roadway westerly up through what was the Kravitsky property, into the Cherma property, and up into the Moss property. So that road construction will start with clearing of the trees and then the excavation for the proposed road bed. The project, as part of the process, will result in lowering of Blacks Hill Road where it intersects the new proposed road, steepening or lessening what's now kind of a steep hump in the road there on Blacks Hill, making some modest improvements to Blacks Hill in terms of road geometry as we pass by, and then continuing to climb up to the Moss property, which will end in a cul-de-sac under the current proposal. So that's a quick summary of the project limits under phase one of the project. And so we're here to answer any questions that you might have based on the proposed roadway work. Go ahead, sir.
Could you go back to the map first of all? So Bridgeport Avenue is at that perpendicular, correct? The
Alex,
intersection of new Constitution, the extension
yes,
right up here, right?
correct. Correct.
So you're going right through the rocks and straight back. So to the left of that, what properties are existing now?
So the road will be constructed first onto property that the city acquired recently, and I'm not sure I'm saying the name properly, Kravitsky.
Maybe I should introduce myself. So you know where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
I'm Dr. Charnoff. I'm at 9 Cott Street
Okay,
in the medical building there,
okay, yeah,
along with Dr. Payne and Dalpino.
yeah,
Okay, and I think we're down here where you just ended, correct?
yes.
So you've already acquired those 2 other homes that you need to go straight back through?
Yes.
Okay, so the White House is already sold. The greenhouse on the opposite side of Black Hill is sold as well.
The city owns both of them,
You're
55
still
and
working on that
56.
one?
No, we've owned both, 55
you-
and 56 Black's Hill,
Are you doing both those houses now?
yes.
Correct.
How long a project is this?
The contractor has 1 year to construct the roadway.
1 year to finish the road.
Correct.
And the Moss property, I know Bigelow Tea has a warehouse. Where is that located?
That'll be in the center of the Moss property. Alex, if you pan out a little bit, it's,
That's
yeah,
the piece.
correct.
And obviously, there's contingency plan to go all the way to 108 at some point beyond that, correct?
That road's been in the city plan of conservation and development forever, and that is
Yeah, I know, as long as that doesn't here in
the,
town.
the long-term plan, yes. To,
So I know they're anxious to do that. So that would be that. What, you can't disclose whom else is going in there now at this point?
I don't think anything's
You're not
firm
privy to
anyway. Yeah. No, everything's open for negotiation.
And that information will be available as it becomes firm.
Sorry?
As it firms up, that information will become available. It's not
Okay.
being not disclosed, it's just not at the point to be disclosed.
But it's not definitive, but you're working on something
Correct.
else.
Correct.
How many lanes is that gonna be? Just 2 lane each way?
As we climb the hill, there'll be a climb, so there'll be 2 lanes going westbound because it's fairly steep. And then as you're coming eastbound, there'll be a turning lane to turn right and a through lane to go straight onto Constitution Boulevard. So at the very intersection with Bridgeport Avenue, will be 4 lanes wide there.
4 lanes,
Mhm.
2 in each direction.
Yeah, we dropped the turning lane, just, you can kind of see by the width of the yellow where the turning lane ceases and it becomes just a 3-lane road.
Then my next question is where Cott Street is.
Yes,
That goes into Black's Hill.
right.
Is that gonna connect right into Constitution Boulevard's north?
Yeah.
You're gonna hook into that.
Yes.
So then my biggest question of all, are they gonna plan to put a light on our street, Cott Street on Bridgeport Avenue?
No. But I dare say that from your facility, if you were to turn on Blacks Hill and come down Constitution Boulevard, you'll have much better access to Bridgeport Avenue.
That is true. That is true. I'm not gonna deny it. But after being in where we're located 40 years now, let's say, a lot of people are used to coming from Bridgeport Avenue onto Cotts and then into our building. And down by, as you may well know or not, the town does, there's some projected project in front of our building. And that's going to increase traffic flow, I would think. And you have to realize we have an ophthalmologist, so we have older people. I don't mean to criticize, because I'm old, elderly also, with poor eyesight. So it becomes a traffic hazard, in my opinion. And I would think it'd be prudent for the town to strongly consider a light at Bridgeport Avenue and Cotts. I know it's close to Constitution North, but I'm putting my 2 cents for it, but I think it's important.
Well, first, people won't be prohibited from turning and doing how they reach your building now and even exiting. I would think the safer way would be to catch the light at the new light at Constitution Boulevard to get
I'm
onto
going to Black
Bridgeport.
Hill and then down.
Yeah. As an improvement that people will adapt to, over time. As far as a second traffic signal, that Bridgeport Avenue is a state road and it's not just up to the city. The state, as you can imagine, no one wants to drive on a road that has a traffic signal every couple hundred feet, and a signal would require what's called a warrant analysis. And so I think that by virtue of the new signal at Constitution Boulevard, Cott Street intersection will be made safer because people can time themselves to interface with the light that will exist at Constitution Boulevard.
I presume going forward, that the state will be looking at that area and the frequency of accidents, and so forth and so on, and then reevaluate. Would that be true?
Well, and so,
At
just,
Cots or at the intersection of Bridgeport Avenue?
Bridgeport Avenue, Cots.
The traffic study will include Cots and the new proposed signal at Bridgeport Avenue. That's all part of the same traffic study.
Because, I can speak from, working there every day. To turn left onto Bridgeport Avenue, sometimes it can be very easy, quick entry onto Bridgeport.
So the timing will extend beyond that. The timings will extend, the study's gonna extend to the ramp onto Route 8 and beyond for signal timings. That's all,
That's always where it's always,
Yeah.
I understand.
yeah.
But it can be tough making that left-hand turn.
Yeah, that's all CTDOT.
Okay,
So when we do the signal build out for the new T intersection on Bridgeport Avenue, that's when all the signal warrants will be done.
all right. But there is gonna be 4 lanes initially coming off of,
just at the very intersection.
Yeah.
so you got a lot of rock to go through.
Mhm.
We're gonna hear blasting all day and all night for a while.
Not all night.
All right, sir.
Speaking of blasting, some people like myself, we have wells. And what kind of precaution are they gonna do? Because like, they just blasted on Bridgeport Avenue and almost knocked my house off the foundation. No warning, no nothing. It just like, my windows rattled and the whole 9 yards. What precautions are they gonna take? You're gonna have to do a lot more blasting than the people on Bridgeport Avenue.
So blasting is tightly supervised by the city fire marshal. How blasting occurred without notice, I'm not certain, but under this project, especially being a city project, the fire marshal will supervise the contractors. The blasting program will have to be approved by the fire marshal. They get into pre-blast surveys and things such as that. So this project will have every level of city scrutiny.
My well is good right now. Never all this blasting prior and then future blasting. Just don't want to see it an issue.
We'll bring that to his attention.
Hello, Mr. Knoll. My name is Paul Untitled Chapter. I'm the son of Nancy Untitled.
Oh,
She resides at 57 Blacks Hill.
okay.
So my first question would be, was consideration given to dead end it Blacks Hill and not crossing the Constitution?
The city actually wished to help make the traffic on Cots Hill better by including it in Constitution Boulevard, just as we had just talked about, that would create actually a safer means for people on Cots Street and Blacks Hill to access Bridgeport Avenue.
Mr. Knoll, in fairness, I sent you a letter October 1st of last year. I sent a letter to the planning board at the same time with these questions. I received no response. I don't consider the response you just gave me satisfactory. Just that we think it's going to be better. So I'm looking for a little bit more specificity for that. I'm not certain how that improves the traffic flow. The width of the roadway existing right now for Blacks Hill Road. Additionally, you have highlighted in yellow there, and it's not clear to me what is proposed there. In yellow, other than you just addressed the extension of Constitution Boulevard with saying there will be an impact to the signs. I don't see any topographic map here describing what type of impact is proposed there.
So what's shown on this plan is for this kind of forum purposes. Anyway, the plans are available on the city website, the construction plans that show everything in more detail, but what this is just depicting is the limits of the road reconstruction for Cott Street and Blacks Hill Road. Approximately how far down Cott Street we're going and how far east or north on Blacks Hill we're going till we match existing. As I mentioned, the road it's actually Blacks Hill is, the road turns into Blacks Hill right at the curve for the most part. That road will be dropped to match the new grade of the proposed Constitution Boulevard West extension. And so to make road geometry work, we can't just drop it with a steep drop. So it's a engineered curve, vertical curve to facilitate the construction of Constitution Boulevard. As far as the making the road a dead end, wasn't what the city wished to do. I'm not sure how else I could satisfy you, but
So then you're suggesting that that can still be changed.
well, the city's here to listen to comments, so yes, I would say that.
Are you done, sir?
You want to make a comment? And then-
Let me ask this thing. Black Hill needs road improvement, correct?
Yes,
The way that it's gonna be widened probably.
Yeah.
Is that so for continuing through Cott Street down to Bridgeport Avenue?
no, so
Or
the,
just what you're diagramming there?
yeah, so the yellow shows the end of the proposed improvements to Blacks Hill right at the bend at Cott Street.
Would the city, question mark, consider improvement of the entire segment right down to Bridgeport Avenue? I think that would make sense. In terms of, it then becomes more logical to enter onto the extension, come down what's now called Blacks Hill on the Forum, on Cots, excuse me, and enter our building. Just makes it a more accessible road and more attractive.
Could be adding a lot of traffic to that road. Cott Street can't handle that much.
Not the way it is now, I agree.
No,
It's a narrow strip.
and there's a big hill. The building is not-
Well, if they improve Blacks Hill, I think it would make logical sense to continue down the road.
So I have a question. What is gonna be the impact of widening Black Hill? I live right where the proposed widening is gonna start, and my neighbor, his mom, lives right next to me. Like, how much of our yards are we gonna be losing?
So the road, we're not looking to make Blacks Hill a 30-foot wide roadway. It's just to make it meet minimum standards.
Excuse me, wait, what did you just say?
We're not looking to make Blacks Hill Road a 30-foot wide
So you're
roadway.
making this a throughway, and yet you're not looking to improve it in any way
What do you mean we're making it a throughway? It's already a
through
through street.
traffic?
It's already a
More
through.
traffic
Right.
with the extension of.
So we're making it meet standards for that roadway design, not much wider than it is now. More improving the vertical geometry to have it enable the construction of Constitution Boulevard extension, so.
But how much wider?
Minimally, I'm just looking at the plans. As you know, Blacks Hill, Cott Street is probably only 15 feet wide in some of its narrow spots, just past Cherma's house. I'll have to check the plans, but it looks like we're probably making it 12, minimum a 12-foot lane, so 24-foot wide roadway.
Because I drive it occasionally now anyway, to see what it's like on that, or if you started work or whatever. I really do think that while you're there and you're doing some improvement to Blacks Hill, it's so logical to me just to continue it right down to Bridgeport Avenue. It becomes a safer road. You have winter, you have salt, ice, you have a lot of problems there.
Mhm.
If you're gonna make it attractive to the residents as well as to our building and customers, I think that's a logical improvement.
So noted, I guess.
Can you address what width does the city own? for the way they do that?
It's a bit complicated. It's a strange street right away. But we'll address that. You mean in terms of what right away width does the city own? it varies. It's an old New England road.
What is the width that you're proposing changing that the city owns? You're the professional engineer in this project. You
Yeah.
gotta know what the width of the road is. I mean, what's proposed, you have it laid out there. I think it's a pretty straightforward question.
It
What
is,
the
and,
city
and,
thinking?
and we'll
How wide is
get
it?
back.
I
So
don't
we-
expect an answer, it's complicated.
We
I
weren't,
expect a number.
right, we're intending this as a general public information meeting, not a technical review, but Kelly will give you
Well,
a card
I'm sorry,
and
you had your
we'll,
chance when I sent you the letter that you failed to respond to. And I said to the city, excuse me, but that is a little insulting that you open these meetings up, you say, give us communication, I send you a letter, and then you both fail to respond. That is a bit frustrating. You open up this meeting saying, we'll respond to it. The track record is poor.
Right, and in general, the people that are living within the closest proximity to this big new intersection, we have no idea, like, what is this gonna look like? Is there gonna be berming? Is there gonna be, you know, an area that you have relief from the stinky traffic and the noise? This is like going from night to day in that neighborhood. Our neighborhood is very quiet, we have minimal traffic, we have children riding their bicycles up and down the street. Now it's gonna become like a free for all, and his mom lives right there, she's 86,
85.
85. Getting in and out of her driveway, what kind of precautions or what kind of things are gonna be put up for the people that live on that road? Have some sort of
well,
resemblance of what they have now.
the traffic that will be using Constitution Boulevard West would have no reason to impact Black Hill Road.
Why do you say that?
That's not what you
It's
said
going
before.
right next to it, it's going right on it.
Right, but I mean, if you're going from Bridgeport Avenue, you want to get to the Moss property, you're going to take the most direct route, which is Constitution Boulevard.
But that's not what you said before, though. Remember I asked you about our building and egress and
Now, that's people who live on Cott Street that want to get to
I
Bridgeport
understand,
Avenue.
but you said they could enter our building through Black Hill to Cott Street to our building. So therefore, it impacts these people because that road needs improvement. And I understand their concerns, just as I have concerns about Cott Street.
Yeah.
So I think part of the project needs to be better defined. If they're looking for, give you the width of the road, what are you doing for the children, yada, yada, yada. But also, the monies that you have, I think some of it has to go towards road improvement. You have to realize that was once a little country bumpkin road for these people who lived there in a very quiet neighborhood until we got there. And, you know, the road needs attention. It needs help.
Now, aren't there people from Huntington gonna be coming down the shortcut?
Not yet.
No, this,
Not
is
yet.
Yeah, because isn't it supposed to go straight to the dog
Right,
park?
that's been in the, probably in the city's plans for 30 years. It's not gonna happen right away. This is just up to the Moss property. I mean, that's a future.
Excuse me, though. This should be the plan for the future. But then I'm gonna ask you if that's the consideration that's going to be happening in the future, how do you protect this from happening in the future, creating problems on Black Hill and Buzzard?
It's all phase construction. So each phase, depending on how much the city wants to take on, will be visited at that time. You're not gonna engineer for something that may or may not even take place. What we're engineering for now is to get on and off the Moss property and to create on city-owned property, a facility that the city can adopt portion of their plan. The total build out of the plan is not going to be engineered at this time. It's a conception. It's been a conception for 30 years.
If the eventual plan is to make that a through street, and I'm a
Correct.
driver driving down the street and I want to go over to Holly Lane Shoes, I'm gonna turn on Black Hill Road and go down Cott Street and skip the light. I'm not gonna wait for the light.
Let's get to that.
So if that is the future plan, traffic flow, it needs to be planned. It doesn't need to be engineered, but it needs to be planned now, if that indeed is your future plan. How is going to impact that?
People will skip those
They
lights.
do it now.
And you yourself admit that they skipped the lights by installing a stop sign on Old Bridgeport Avenue down the road from the American Legion. There's no reason for a stop sign there, other than to try and prevent people from skipping the light and losing their.
I appreciate all of your questions and your concerns regarding the traffic part. Are there any other questions? And I'm not dismissing them. I just want to know if there's any other topics that we should be aware of.
I
Yes,
was just wondering how far below the Murphy property will the road be? Will it be level with the property or will it be down lower?
Alex, could you go to the,
Which property?
yeah, I don't know which one's one. The colored graphic.
It's the one with the two red buildings on it.
To your left and left.
Oh.
right
Right,
there.
right there.
So the roadway will be at that point in a pretty steep cut through there. So if you're up at the, I'll call it the Murphy property, the road will be way down in a valley at
And
that
will
point.
is there any plans to put a noise fence in on any of that road, the new road?
Well, I think by virtue of the deep cut that it's in, noise won't be an issue up at the Murphy level.
And then on the Moss property, once it's developed, at what time in the morning can people go in there and start emptying dumpsters?
You know, that I would say is subject to regular city ordinance, like they
Why
can.
does the city ordinance, as we speak? Because of sunshine storage, sometimes at 3 in the morning, I hear people saying,
I don't have the city ordinance in front of me, but it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be different than any other commercial property, I guess.
and then getting back to the well, after this is done, let's say our well now doesn't work. What is our recourse? What do we do if all of a sudden our well doesn't work? And it would obviously be because of the blasting and the changing of the topography on the hill. What do we do? Just get bottled water? What would be,
No, I believe that, that proximity to the project will be one of the sites for certain to be the result of a pre-blast survey of the structure, your structure itself. We'll make the fire marshal aware of wells also, but existing conditions will be recorded, and therefore, if there's a change in that, there would be recourse.
When is the road widening for Blackstone proposed to start? What's the entire schedule?
Probably construction would start next month and occur over the course of a year.
So what is the schedule? What sections are you planning to do when?
So obviously they would start here at the lower part and work their way up the hill. But we don't, we give the contractor the year's time frame with disincentives if he's slow or late. So instead, we don't dictate what part he works on specifically.
And in the lowering of the roads on Blackstone Road, obviously the existing driveway and at the cross height, how is that addressed?
So, for instance, your mother's driveway is pretty steep from existing Black Hill down to her garage. The road lowering will reduce the slope of her driveway. We'll be lowering the road, making her driveway less steep, and repaving of her driveway of any of those impacts.
Is there the elevation for that?
On the construction plans, not on this plan, yes. Sure, yeah.
Have you considered her septic pipe and the stuff and everything? That's all sort of qualified that?
Her septic pipe?
Yeah.
You mean she must have a sewer lateral into the main
Yeah.
sewer? We're not, so by the time we reach her driveway, the impacts are 1 or 2 or 3 feet, not enough to expose her sewer lateral. Is the basement of that house served by sewer or just the first floor?
Comes out at the below the first floor.
Below the first floor, so should be just fine.
Comes out of ground level.
I'll make note of that. Though.
And the well is in the front yard.
Yeah, I saw the well. One, as part of this road project, new utilities will be extended as well, a new water main, so it would afford the opportunity to connect to other new utilities, gas, water that will be going up Constitution Boulevard. So,
And the water is going to Constitution Boulevard,
yeah.
so how does that benefit Rockville Road or Thompson? You're saying it's going to-
So just to go the short distance from Constitution Boulevard to your mother's property wouldn't be a long run of water main. Sure,
Not part of the proposal, no.
no. Someone had their hand up, I'm sorry.
Maybe I missed your answer. Start date is probably September of this year.
Kelly, would you?
Yes, I think
September,
sometime in
and figure about a year. And then you're also saying with these sewer lines, that's going through Black Hill or water lines, Black Hill to Cott Street improvement, is that what's gonna happen?
No, the sewer will be extended all the way down to Bridgeport Avenue.
From Black Hill to Cotts to.
Well, from the Moss property all the way down to Bridgeport Avenue.
Okay,
And
I see.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
The Moss property and say the Murphy property, and that property lower than that, that's Jim lives there. Is there gonna be any buffer or can they build right up to the property lines behind us?
So the road work won't be anywhere near the Cherma property, the Murphy Cherma property line.
Yeah.
So-
See where it says acres?
Right.
Yeah.
Why does someone put a big building right where it says acres? They're gonna be looking right down on our pool.
It's setbacks. They're,
It says, yeah.
Yeah.
It says 28.5 acres.
Oh.
In the green area there, the Moss property. Why does someone just put a big building right there? Or what if there's, they're right on our, they're gonna be looking right down in our yard.
So any development on the Moss property will be subject to the zoning standards that exist today. There'll be side setbacks, rear setback requirements.
Will there be a Jody Murphy? Will there be any change to the zoning to any of the buildings that are pre-existing on Blacks Hill, Cott Street?
To currently existing building?
Correct.
I don't think so. Alex, you didn't do a zoning change on any of that, right? No.
All the area that's in white on the south, is still zone residential.
It-
Except for the medical building.
Just so that I don't misspeak, it'll be unchanged from what it is now.
So like now,
I don't know what the
Alex, can you
current
pull
zoning.
up- or do you have a specific property? Because it's by property.
While we're checking that, is there any other questions?
Will there ever be a meeting just on the eminent domain part of this? We all got a
What,
booklet
mate?
saying they're taking some of our right of way. And that's really what makes it what it said.
So I
The
can
whole
speak.
road went through there in the forties, part of our,
Right.
right of way.
So if you received a notice in conjunction with the eminent domain for 55 Blacks Hill, that was because there were rights of way that ran across 55 Blacks Hill that were probably from, as you said, probably the early 30s, 20s even, and they they were just rights that were in the property that were probably not even used or even known about, but because it was listed of record, that maybe at some point in time they were, you had to be listed in the condemnation, but that was only to that specific right of way that you had. That condemnation was not as to your property, just as to those rights. And if you still have that paperwork, you can certainly call Attorney Teodosio. His number was listed on there, and he's, well, you did call. Okay, and he assured you that that was, that what that taping was, correct?
Yes, we had issue with that. So there was supposed to be a meeting and a hearing of the property before the eminent domain was put in place.
I will take down that question and get back to you. Yeah. That's Murphy, correct?
Yes.
So will there be any further meetings, these types of things that will actually show what's really gonna happen here in terms that people can understand, really get a feel for what all of this is going to look like? It's just impossible to kind of envision all of this.
Just to reiterate what you said, no enough for this informational, not meant to be a technical meeting. And when's the next meeting?
So as we had mentioned that the work will be starting probably within the month. And so this is informational to the point of, we gave you some technical information as to when, the timing, how this will look from probably a very much one-dimensional level. As you have questions that come up, we may or may not meet again. If we determine based on your questions, I said, I'll hand out cards and you can reach me directly. There may become a need for another meeting. We would most likely probably just answer questions specifically. And if we think your question is, will then necessitate having another meeting, we will absolutely keep you informed and have another meeting. Yes, sir.
So then, for that answer you're giving, have you designated a lead person for the project that we could correspond with if we have questions?
Yes. So most likely we will be sending those questions to Mike Canios's office. And
Might
then
get a business card on it?
Unfortunately, they're being made up as of today.
what you can do is I will give you my business card. and then
I'll give
will
you my
direct
information,
Yeah.
for anybody who wants it
Can you
before we,
text it to my phone?
I can,
And I,
Like
At the end, I'll give you my phone number.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
You
that's-
said you have a business card.
I do have a business card and you can direct them for me, then I can forward them to the proper individual to get back to you.
So what's going to be done with all the traffic?
I'm sorry, with the traffic.
What's going to be done with all the traffic?
Are they on the way?
They were.
Well, I've notated them. And as I said, those are all excellent
Yeah.
questions that we
We can put it
received, and
all
we'd
on.
like to properly
So we'll
answer
figure
your
it out.
questions. So you've given us,
Out.
certain
Do we
things to
know if
think
the
about
plans are
to
online?
get you an accurate answer. That
Will
we
the
want, this
package
again
go
was
online?
just to open up communication and not meant to have all the finite answers to the questions that you were asking this evening.
What kind
It's not.
of timeframe and what kind of communication method are you envisioning?
I'm going to give you my card, as I mentioned. You can email me. I will acknowledge your email and I will then forward it to the proper individual to answer your question, which will most likely be Mike Canios's office.
Okay, but I'm talking specifically right now, I'm talking about the traffic questions that have always been brought up and you said they were going to be looked at. What kind of timeframe are you looking at for looking at the traffic questions? And what kind of method are you going to have to communicate the information back to all of us here?
How would you like to handle that? So the dissemination of information.
We could do it one of two ways. We could try and post it on the website for you.
And how do we know when to what?
I don't know how we would handle notification of that.
I would probably suggest that we will try to reach out to you to let you know that information there. If we have your contact, but you just check the site routinely. And that will give you information. And then just to realize that some of the questions we have here do not affect everybody in the same way. So that we'll be able to answer more, certain questions for what people have versus just broadly stating, because each property is different as to how it would be impacted.
When the road is being expanded, when it's being widened, how is Mrs. Levy and Esme going to get out of the driveways?
The contractor will be required to maintain access.
So they will be able to get out of the driveway?
Absolutely.
100%.
And that's the question. What if my mother objects to the alteration of the road?
I'm sorry?
What happens if my mother were to object to any alterations of a road?
We would seek to alleviate any adverse impacts. I mean, I think that the driveway, for instance, being reduced in its steep grade and new pavement would be a benefit, but if she objected, we'd seek to,
That is one argument. Dead ending the road and leaving it as it is, would also make things much safer for them. Deeper road, very safe and private.
so all of your comments have been noted. We'll be discussing them with the city.
And I think we would have to take that not hypothetically, but as the questions or concerns came up.
Maybe you went on that road and put little flags where you think it's gonna end up being widened. Either increase their concern or decrease their concern. Say, oh, just, okay.
It will be, Ronnie, once we get through.
That's half my
Sure,
front yard.
Right.
Right
Yeah.
now,
You gotta-
now,
you gotta
with
get
yellow and green and stuff,
Brennan,
we're not,
lines,
Correct.
so
we're not
they're
messing
gonna
with it.
Yeah, it'll all be staked.
But we know what a flag looks like and what,
Yeah,
how wide the road looks for big flags. They're already flagging the other way.
it absolutely will be flagged once we start construction.
Yeah, but then it's too,
It's part of
once
the,
you start construction, it might be too late for some people to object.
well, it's part of the process, so prior to anybody touching the parcel that you may be concerned about, it will be flagged. So you'll be able to see it. Pretty much ample time ahead if you had any concerns.
I guess that still doesn't address what if you reject,
What's that?
doesn't address what if you object. to alteration.
Well, we would have to address it on a case-by-case basis at that point, You can't try to forecast objections until we get to that point.
I guess I'm trying to understand how do you negotiate that? So you're operating right now, it seems like you're operating under the presumption that the impacted parties have no issue with it, without having ever approached the impacted parties. So I'm trying to understand.
We've done how many public outreaches have you done?
Yeah, there have been other public hearings that have happened, and I realized that you had made communication to the city, and I don't really have an answer to you as to why you weren't responding, so I apologize for that. But again, you're asking a question that cannot be answered in concept, because we don't know what your objections are going to be, so, or you don't even know exactly how this would be
We
impacted.
don't even know what you're planning on doing to the property.
Again,
How can we object to something we haven't been?
sure, I understand your concerns. I understand everything that you're saying, assuming as to the rest of the people up here. It's just, it may be minimal. We're telling you that we do not believe that there's going to be any major impact, and that any of the impact is going to be a positive impact for that property, as far as what Ron Knoll had mentioned. So I can't predict what you're going to think is adverse until you have an objection to something. So right now, we're seeing it from what the maps have shown, and I believe, gentlemen, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not forecasting any objectionable activity to the road widening, or how it will affect the property. Is that correct?
That's correct. So in engineering, you're not going to engineer something that has a direct adverse effect to an abutting property owner without, prior to getting to even 80% design of a project, approaching that impacted property owner. So I think you might be operating under the impression that we looked at existing topography and said, we're putting a road here, and we're gonna, build and develop this property. The city doesn't take, nor do the engineering firms take that as a course of action. Everything is considered as you're going through design plans. So the impacts to your mom's driveway, and actually we have discussed that, is very favorable for her. If at the time you don't think it's favorable, I'm sure we can come up with a reasonable resolution to it. The city is not going to put forth a project that directly just negatively impacts abutting property owners. That's not something any of us seek to do, whether you're in engineering or any parcel of the city. That's not something we do. That's not our intent here. So I don't know. I wish I did know on your behalf how no information fell through the cracks. None of us were kind of in that. Kelly and I certainly weren't in this capacity at that point. But we are hearing them now. We have all of your questions, and we are going to address them. I think traffic-wise, you might have a misconception of what traffic of this project is going to be like. This is mostly an industrial type of corporate park, for lack of a better term. Okay, so it's a lot of warehousing facilities, which are not, required of hundreds of employees. The truck traffic has been designed to be on Constitution and Constitution only. It's not going to impact Cotts or Blacks Hill. That's not going to be a mode of transport for trucks. Trucks are explicitly going to use Constitution. That's why this bill.
Understand how close Constitution is to Cox Street and Black. Have you been by there to see? You're saying, oh, the trucks are only gonna be on Constitution. They're gonna be driving right by his mother's house.
No,
And
I'm
across
talking
the
about,
way from her house.
I'm talking about
We're
once
not
the,
talking about, oh, it's gonna be like so far away, you're not even gonna see the truck. You're gonna be hearing these trucks. You're gonna be smelling these gases. You're changing this, and you're making it sound like, oh, the trucks are only gonna stay in Constitution. Like, I think you're the one that's under some misconception of how this road is changing this neighborhood. You have even 50 employees up there that have to drive down Constitution. 30 of them say, you know what, I gotta go to Big Y after work. 30 of them are gonna cut through Cott Street and then cut through Old Bridgeport Avenue to get to Big Y. You don't think that's gonna have an impact on these people? You got a family right there that didn't even come to this meeting. I don't know if they're on Zoom. They have little kids. There's 2 families in that neighborhood that have little kids. 3 actually. They ride their bikes. Maybe you need to do a little, I know you're new at this,
I'm not new at this. I've been doing this for almost 40 years,
at this role. Maybe you need to.
higher than this role.
Go into this with eyes a little more wide open.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments and your questions, and you brought to light very important questions, and that we've notated it, and we'll get back to, so we do understand that.
You had mentioned the technical plans. Where being made available, how do we get access to those?
They're not on the website. We can post them, I would assume, at some point. Yeah, we can you do
Set of plans for your office.
PDFs and then we'll post them?
Sure.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
Aside from hard sets?
Yeah, we'll have the plans made available to the city's website. They were there, they were the full set that, that's how contractors were able to access the plans to bid on. The full set of plans and specs were on the city website and might still be, but we'll make sure they are.
try to see where it's, go in the search engine and type in mass property plans?
No, extension of Constitution Boulevard West.
It'll be identifiable on the website. Are you familiar with how to get to the city's website?
I know what the city website is. I
Yes.
don't know my way around the site.
Yes, you'll be able to find it on there. Are there any further questions or concerns to be raised tonight? Thank you. I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Alex, you can end the meeting.